Welcome to Global Perspectives. What is the cybersecurity threat today? For answers, we turn to Professor Ido Savan-Sevilla of Hebrew University.
Global Perspectives with Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator John Bercia.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, John. It's a great privilege to be here and talk about pressing cyber issues, bringing the conversation closer to the field. I think that the better we do that, the better we can solve a lot of cybersecurity issues that are on the table right now.
Good, and we'll be getting into those, but first I think our audience would appreciate learning a little bit about you. You have a fascinating background. I don't know if you grew up thinking, I'll be in cybersecurity one day, but if you could tell us a little bit about your background, the experience you had in the military and so forth, and connect the dots for us.
Absolutely, thank you. So I was a big computer geek, as they say. When I was a kid, I always had computers in my basement. My dad was bringing the latest technology. I was the first one in my hometown to have internet connection, so our home was like a hub for computer guys. And then I did, the obvious route for me was to do a computer science BA. I did it at the Technion. It's Israel Institute of Technology. I then accumulated a lot of cybersecurity experience from the Israeli Air Force. In my last role as a captain, I was leading the cybersecurity efforts of the Israeli Air Force. I then joined the private sector. I was a product manager of a cybersecurity company. Following that, I joined the Prime Minister's office to establish its own cybersecurity department. And then I went on a Fulbright scholarship to do my master's in public policy at the University of Minnesota, and now I'm at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem doing my PhD in the governance challenges of cybersecurity.
My gosh, it sounded like about 30 years of experience that you just described, so you must have started when you were 5. But this is terrific, and there's so many places to start. But since cybersecurity is the issue, could you step back and maybe help the viewers understand just generally what the problem is? We see bits and pieces about this all the time. It's very, very hard to focus, and then people get scared when there's some kind of cyber disruption, and they worry, could there be a massive cyber attack against the United States? Could it be conducted by another state? That kind of thing. But maybe start at the very beginning, talk generally about the issue, and then we can get into specifics.
Now, that is a great question, because you don't often get to zoom out and look at the problem as a whole. And this is what I'm trying to do in my research. And this is my organization, the Israeli Public Diplomacy Forum, is trying to promote unbiased views on pressing topics such as cybersecurity. And if you zoom out on the cybersecurity problem, you ask yourself, what is the public interest in cybersecurity? We all hear about critical infrastructures, about problems with the economy, about cybercrime, data breaches. But wait a minute, what does the public want when it comes to cybersecurity? And the answer is pretty straightforward. You want better data security, and you want more individual privacy. The problem is that this is hard to achieve in an ecosystem that has 3 main pillars. It has the national security establishment that is very powerful and dominating the agenda, and this means taking care of critical infrastructures. This is mean all what the intelligence agencies are doing out there when it comes to cybersecurity. And this doesn't always go along with what the public wants, what's the public interest in cybersecurity. And also you have to consider the second pillar, the digital economy. 25% of the companies out there are what we call data companies. It means that the digital economy is booming, and the commercial interests do not always align with what the public wants. So this really makes the system a bit more complicated. You have different set of actors taking this ecosystem to different places, but in order to understand the issues, you always have to use these 3 different glasses to look at the problem.
So, from a governmental perspective, actually from many of these, but especially from the governmental perspective, we hear a lot about risk. And oftentimes it's just assumed that everyone understands what that means and they move on to the next paragraph. But many people are lost at that point without explanation. Can you help us understand and make the transition from the word risk into what that signifies in terms of the issue.
Yes, this is a very, very good point, John, because when you talk about what we call risk governance, it always touches upon things that are related to safety. So you're saying, okay, we want to control risks from earthquakes. We want to control risks from chemical interventions in our food. Risk is not well associated to cybersecurity issues because these are risks that are harder to quantify. They're less concrete. And what does it mean that I have less privacy? How does it affect me on a day-to-day basis? It is not always clear for the general public. So we have to do some work and make these issues more accessible. And if you look, for instance, at what the U.S. government is doing when it comes to governing risks, you see that the U.S. government is heavily invested already back since the 19th century in managing risks for society. They're doing a lot of preventions of risks. They're doing a lot of mitigation of risks after the damage has happened to minimize the consequences. They're also shifting the risks in methods of shifting liability from one entity to other. And they're also doing risk spreading, what we call insurance mechanisms. So there are many risk strategies that the government is already using to tackle other financial risks, to stimulate the economy. This discourse and these mechanisms are not translating into the cybersecurity world because it's dominated by the security establishment, by commercial interest. The public interest doesn't well play out there, and we need to have a better discourse. There's a huge distrust between the government and the private sector. Private sector doesn't want the government to intervene. There is a fascinating fact that if you look at the recent major data breaches, none of them were able to be mitigated with government intervention. Government was out of the equation there. And the government has a lot of information on what to do with the cybersecurity stuff. And this does not translate into the economy. This does not translate to better protect us as citizens. And this is a huge source of concern.
You talk about the distrust that the public sector, the private sector has for the government. And when you talk to people in the private sector, they just very enthusiastically say it's warranted and we will continue to maintain this posture. Explain where they're coming from. Why is there this distrust, and what can be done to maybe build some bridges between the two?
So let's look at the history. So the government was starting to regulate the privacy problem already in 1974. Congress passed the Privacy Act. And in this policy process, in these debates, private sector was able to put themselves out of any regulatory requirements. They were already heavily burned by other regulations. They said there is no concrete evidence that there are any privacy risks from the private sector. So it was out of the regulation then. And then 20 years later, 1997, we have the digital economy starting to boom. And in the Clinton and Gore administration back then, they published the White House strategy for the digital economy, specifically saying that private companies will not be regulated whatsoever because they're the future of the economy and we have to let them grow. So this is what we call a pet dependency thing, that just privacy and data security regulations were not part of what the private sector had to do. And this actually paved the way for what we call today the commodification of personal information, right? There are no free lunches out there online. We are the product, our information worth a fortune for these companies. And there, there's no regulation or oversight, even after the fact, that is in place to control who has what kind of information on us. And this started, decades ago.
So where do we go from this point? How do we arrange a path forward that is good for the private sector, good for government, and contributes to the public interest?
So the federal government is obviously failing because it's skewed more to the national security side of things. And even the market, so if you think about it, the market really rewards innovation. It does not reward more secure products. Now, this is a big problem. If the federal government is not working, if market forces are not working, there is a gap. There is a market failure that has to be corrected. And I believe that the way forward is not through what we call security standards, because regulation cannot really follow technology. Technology is much faster, and you see that throughout the history. There is an amazing statistic that most of the major data breaches happened in companies that actually proved compliance with very strict security standards. So standards do not work. That's out of the equation. What can work? So we have to think about what we call smart regulation, and this means maybe having some tax incentives for more secure products. It means that engaging the research community in. We have great research community on cybersecurity issues, and they are not contributing to solve the cybersecurity problem. You now see a very promising trend of what we call bug bounty programs. It means that private companies and government agencies as well hire these researchers to tell them how hackable are their networks. And this is a very fruitful contribution, and you get paid according to the vulnerabilities that you find. So this is a very important way that we can move forward through. We can use government purchasing power to encourage more secure products in the market. If the government will strategically push forward products that do security and privacy well, the whole ecosystem would look differently.
How concerned should, I want to maybe bring it down to the general public, since people in the audience are from that group primarily, should they be concerned? We hear about breaches all the time in consumer credit areas and things like that. And it just makes you stop what you're doing and think, oh my gosh, am I now exposed in A, B, and C ways?
Mm-hmm. This is very concerning, because I think at the end of the day, and you see that throughout the history, and I was able to see that in my technical position, at the end of the day, everything is what we call vulnerable. Everything is hackable. Depends on the resources that you have and the amount of time that you have. And if you look at cyber criminals, they're not interested in John or in Ido. They're working on the big numbers. They have hundreds of hacking campaigns running in parallel and just waiting for someone to do the wrong thing and allow access and allow stealing of money, transactions of money, and cybercrime. It really worth a lot of money for those criminals. But at the end of the day, if you look at what Israel is doing, Israel was able to establish its own cyber bureau. So we have a bureau that its main thing is to deal with cyber issues. And once you have this bureau, there's no question of authority. There's less institutional battles over, okay, which jurisdiction has to deal with which problem of cybersecurity. You have one address, a one-stop shop for all. And at the same time, Israel was also able to engage the research community of Israel. We have a lot of cyber innovation in Israel. If you look at the global market, 7% of the global market is being exported from Israel. This is huge in terms of if you compare that to the size of the population. And the government was able to plug in this research potential to help attract human capital and solve a lot of the cybersecurity problems of the country. There are 30 multinational corporations that chose to base their research and development centers in Israel. If it's EMC, VMware, Google, JP Morgan, and Israel offers a very unique and comprehensive perspective on how to integrate the whole components in a holistic approach to solve the problem.
Where is this cyber unit located, and what's the governing mechanism?
So it's a good question, because it's located both in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Beersheba. And they were able to establish the city of Beersheba in the south as what we call the desert valley. You have the Silicon Valley, we have the desert valley. Tons of high-tech companies, promising startups are starting there. They're working with the Cyber Bureau in Beersheba. So the Cyber Bureau, they have a lot of threat mitigation centers that are creating a very lively entrepreneurship atmosphere there, and a good exchange between private and public sector. And this is how you increase the trust. This is how you channel all the channels to work in the same direction. And we missed that in the U.S., unfortunately.
Is this led by the government, or is it a government private sector partnership?
So it's a very good government-private sector partnership, but at the same time, when it comes to critical things, government is more heavily involved. If a cybersecurity risks create a national security risk, you will see more presence of the government. But mostly, government and the private sector try to work together. Specifically, you can see that in the Israeli Export Institute, since exporting cybersecurity is such an engine for economic growth in Israel. You see a lot of cooperations on what you can or cannot export in terms of national security, and the industry is an important part of this discourse.
I read in your resume that you were instrumental in setting up this cyber entity within the Israeli Prime Minister's office.
Right.
What exactly does that mean, and what advice could you offer to leaders in other countries who don't have such an entity and maybe ought to have one?
So I think one of the problems is that we need to increase the cyber talent, that's how we call it, in the government. Because the skilled graduates, they usually go after the big money in the private sector, and this makes the government less secure. So it's a problem of human capital. It's a problem, like we discussed, of trust between private and public entities. You also have to remember that at the end of the day, the government is also an organization that has to protect itself on the one side, but also have vast intelligence capabilities on the other side. And this doesn't always go together. And we can give an example. We have a fascinating discourse now on vulnerabilities disclosure. If you're an intelligence agency, you're in the business of finding backdoors in computers, right? But what happens once you've got a very promising backdoor, let's say in your home computer? Would you tell Microsoft, hey, your product that billions of people use is not secure, please patch that for the security of everybody? Or would you choose to keep this vulnerability to yourself so you can gather more intelligence information and hack into other computers? This is a delicate balance there. There's no right answer. But now the government is trying to figure how to better decide on these pressing issues.
Let's talk about national security. And if there is a system-wide threat, obviously that affects the security of the entire country. How vulnerable is the United States? I know it's the question that's hard to answer, and in some respects you don't want to be too specific about how you answer, but how vulnerable is the United States just generally to a massive cyber attack, especially one conducted by another state?
That's a great question. So the Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security is doing a great job at defending critical infrastructures in the United States. But at the same time, you see a lot of Middle East countries that do not hesitate to demonstrate their cyber power. And actually, Middle East countries are great case studies for us researchers who want to understand how states use their cyber offensive capabilities. You hear about attacks between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iran was attached to attacks in a dam in New York State. So there's this cat and mouse race between the attempts to protect critical infrastructures and the passion, so to speak, of Middle East countries to use these capabilities. We know that Russia is super capable. We had a electric grid shutdown in Ukraine after very sophisticated Russian hacking. The thing is with critical infrastructures is that it's not an easy hack. It's usually a proprietary infrastructures that you have to study for months, even sometimes for years, in order to successfully hack them. And so you see that the threat comes from state-sponsored hacking rather than the entire ecosystem of cyber criminals that are out there. But if you think about it, everything now becomes a critical infrastructure, right? Think about the elevator that brought us here. Think about the traffic lights. Everything is now getting connected because if your infrastructure is connected, it can function better. But at the same time, it's more hackable. And now you're starting to hear this trend of going back to analog, make things less hackable and less functionable, but at the same time, they're more secure. So security versus usability, this is a huge issue that organizations and countries will have to solve better.
So, to the original question then, do you think we're relatively safe in the United States? And obviously you've pointed out many ways in which we could improve our capabilities, but relative to other countries, your educated, informed speculation about this is that we're relatively safe, but we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, well, I mean, the bodies, the entities, the agencies that have the expertise in cybersecurity in the United States are very impressive in terms of what they can do. And there's great cooperations between agencies over the world over this expertise. And intelligence agencies between themselves can really share information. You know, the thing that we're lacking domestically between private and public sectors, it happens really well in the international arena. And you also ask yourself, why? But the capabilities of the United States are translated into capabilities of other Western allies, and it's a very fruitful exchange process. And if you have all the threats, if you understand the threats in real time, you can take proactive measures to protect yourself. So the United States is doing well compared to other nations in the world. But you have to remember, it's no longer the Cold War era when you had two superpowers. You have over 100 states that have cyber capabilities. So threat can come from everywhere. And our job, you know, our duty, if you will, as the public, is to push for a more secure ecosystem. Because if you break encryption, everybody is less secure, even if you get a short-run intelligence benefit from a backdoor. So this is a big debate on how to do this better, but we can do this better and advance the public interest in cyberspace.
We are unfortunately coming to the end of our time, but there's one question based on what you just mentioned that occurs to me, which is we've got all of these countries with cyber capabilities, but many times when I'm talking to folks in the general public, they're surprised that so many other countries have these capabilities. Is that just a misreading of what has changed over time? What causes people not to think that North Korea or Iran or Russia or some other country would have these kinds of capabilities?
Yes, so we are captured in traditional paradigms of what, you know, these less developed countries can do. But actually for North Korea, the isolation is great because they are able to develop great cyber capabilities, you know, in their own boundaries, and you tend to notice only after they demonstrate this ability and attack a target. And it's much cheaper to develop cyber capabilities than to develop nuclear capabilities. So this road to cyber capability is faster, is cheaper, and it's very tempting since everything becomes digital.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Sabathia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you. For Global Perspectives, I'm John Bercia. We'll see you next time.